Welcome to the Climate and Global Indigenous Leadership, Take Two. Sadly, I'm grateful that we're able to have Take Two, and we having Take Two because when we did the original Climate and Global Indigenous Leadership, I believe it was in November 2025, we somehow, someone hijacked our recording. So we thought we'd try it again. And thankfully, most of the speakers from that time are here again. So I'm grateful for all of them to be here. And we're going to start, as we always do, with the land acknowledgement. And we have Karina Gould, the amazing, amazing woman, tribal chair of the Confederated Villages of 𝐂𝐥𝐻𝐿, co-founder of Segurite Land Trust. And thank you, Karina, for being here and blessing us with your presence and your words. Take it away.
Good morning, relatives. So nice to be here with all of you again today. As we start this day off, we're going to invite ourselves to take some breaths and to let go of stuff that is unneeded in this space. We want to just bring in our ancestors from all four directions to be here today for us to listen and witness and move forward to do the good work that we've been asked to do on this earth together. And it's a wonderful day to do that. And so I'm going to ask us to take a deep breath in. We're going to breathe for 4 and let out for 8. And as we're doing that, I want us to send out prayers for all of your relatives, those relatives that need extra help today, ourselves and our bodies and our minds. And so let's take a deep breath with that. And let it go. And this morning, as we are together, let us remember our waters and ask for those waters to be clear and clean for the next 7 generations, that we as human beings do everything in our power to clean up the oceans and the rivers, to open up the creeks again, and to welcome our salmon and our whale and all of our relatives that are in those waters that help us in ways that we cannot see. And take a deep breath. And let it go. We offer today prayers for our Mother Earth, who we stand upon today. We pray for our relatives that are growing in our gardens, our plant relatives that are giving us medicine and food, for all of our relatives that are under the ground, that are moving the earth, all of our relatives that are pollinating our plants so that we have food and medicine, all of our relatives that are picking our fruits and our medicines and that are afraid right now of this terror of ice. We pray for them and their families and those that we have lost in this struggle. We take a deep breath and let it go. We offer a prayer for our relatives that are in what is now known as Canada, and the fires that are affecting them and our Mother Earth right now in the skies. And we ask for protection over our relatives on 2 feet, on 4 feet, and those that fly in the sky. We ask for a blessing that we return to a relationship with fire, where fire is no longer feared, but that we have a relationship of respect again. And we take a deep breath. And we let it go. We pray together for our relatives that are in Palestine, in West Papua, in Kashmir, in the Congo, and Haiti, our relatives that are in the Amazon, our relatives that are facing fascism all over the world, our relatives here on the streets that have no home. We pray grandmothers and grandfathers for their hearts and for peace in a way that we can come together to be human beings again, and that the wars stop and we see each other for the human beings that we are. And we take a deep breath and we let it go. And with this last breath, we take in everything that we need to make ourselves strong and healthy so that we can do the good work that our ancestors have asked us to do as the bridge between those that are yet to be born and those of our ancestors. And we take a deep breath and we let it go. Thank you, ancestors, for coming in this circle together today to learn from each other, to make the changes that we need to make in order for us, not just human beings, to survive, but all of the planet's relatives. And we see each other as relatives again. Thank you, Cheryl. It's good to see you. Talk to you soon.
Nice to see you too. It's been so long since I've been able to get that wonderful hug from you.
It's true.
Yeah. But so I miss you, and I'm thinking about you always, especially when I'm down there near the shell mound. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's always a blessing for you to start us off on the right path. You have a blessed day, and thank you for being here.
All
All
right.
right. So I'm Cheryl Davila. I'm a former council member in the city of Berkeley, and I'm the founder of the Climate Emergency Mobilization Task Force. I'm on a few boards, the Interfaith Council of Alameda County, Consider the Homeless, KPFA Local Station Board. And I'm excited to have a regular segment on KPFZ, kpfz.org on Tuesdays at 4:30 on Tribal Voices of Turtle Island. And our segment's called The Voices of Resistance. And I'm a co-host on that with my sister, Lynette. So I'm grateful, and Elder Jim Brown Eagle is he's the host of the Tribal Voices of Turtle Island, and his wife Eldris Gale. So that's such a blessing to do that every Tuesday at 4:30. And thank you all for being here. And I want to thank CEMTF Planning and Logistics, Jack and Karina, who are also the members of the steering committee, who put in time every week to plan these events and more, because we do bio-blitzes. We also partner with UC Berkeley CERC with that, and sometimes we do Mobilize Berkeley, where we have community climate healing gatherings. So I also want to thank the speakers today, Karina, Shreya, Loa, Mauricio, Moni, and Nihinda, who is here from Brazil. So we have Brazil in the house. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all the folks that donated. And if you haven't donated, there's still time. You can go to CEMTF.org. I'll drop it in the chat. And the donations go to pay our minimal bills, but we do have them, the Zoom, constant contact, so that we can send out emails. And sometimes when we can, we'll do an honorarium for our Indigenous leaders and people of color. But currently, right now, we're a little bit underfunded, so we need your donations. So and able to do that. And also, I just wanted to say that we are in continuing genocidal occupation, and we have to be in solidarity to free Palestine, to free Sudan, the Congo, Haiti, Yemen, free us all from oppression, greed, racism, capitalism, or AKA capitalism, as my friend Tiny Gray Garcia would say. And we have to speak up in opposition to oppose surveillance of our communities, say no to flock no, oppose AI, who will use our water, energy to surveil and encroach on indigenous land. And we have to say no to pipelines, say no to coal, and realize that AI will eliminate us from industry and replace humans in so many ways and destroy our water. So it's harder and harder to know the truth. So we have to stay woke and be in solidarity. We have to free ourselves from the settler colonial hatred and bigotry and Zionism in order to save ourselves and protect our planet, our crops, our air, and our water. So CEMTF has been here for 7 years. Hopefully we'll celebrate that one day. It's been hard to celebrate in these continuing disappearance of our community members, murdering children and families. Just the other day, like this, just in the last week, 3 people have gotten martyred by ICE. And so there's so many atrocities that are chipping away our mental health, our civil rights, our free speech, our freedom, which I never had, but it's quite unbelievable, our reality with 47, the Supreme Court ignoring the Constitution and the law. The list is long. And then the climate, and we have water like in excess now with all these flash floods and fires in Canada. People in New York are having an apocalyptic sky, and the air quality was at like 157 the other day. So we're in some crazy times, but we got to keep it moving and keep hope alive and make noise. Let your voice be heard. Now is the time. We have to continue to be in solidarity and first take a look within and do what work on yourself so you can be ready and prepared for what comes next. So we kicked off a Climate and Global Indigenous Leadership Take 2 on Wednesday at the CEMTF General Meeting, which was awesome and cozy. We'll send out that recording. And, last time we had Climate and Global Indigenous Leadership, the COP30 was happening. And today we have a speaker who was there with all the Indigenous leaders that blocked the entrance to the COP30, and our speakers today that will stand up to ensure Indigenous voices are heard. So sit back. You can make a reaction if you're happy about what's all the people that you're about to see and listen to this morning. So let's get started with the Climate and Global Indigenous Leadership Take 2. Get your coffee, get ready, get your tea, your avocado toast, whatever it is you need to sit back and listen to these wonderful speakers who will enlighten us this morning. And first, we're going to start with Beyond Damage, How Do We Rebuild? With Shreya Chaudhuri, founder of Project Planet. So go ahead, take it away, and I'm sorry if I messed up your name.
You're all good. Thank you, Cheryl. Sorry, let me just share my screen really quick. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Shreya, and this is a presentation about Indigenous climate solutions from India. So my name is Shreya, and I'm from a tea farming family in Assam, India. We've been tea farmers for the last 6 generations, and I'm also a recent graduate of UC Berkeley, where I majored in environmental science and geography and minored in data science and global poverty and practice, and worked at CERC, which is how I met Cheryl. And at Berkeley, I taught and co-founded a class called Decolonizing Environmentalism, which grew into the Decolonial Environmental Network on campus, which is a hub for centering Indigenous-led climate solutions and integrating climate justice within Berkeley curriculum. And as well as the American Culture's Environmental Justice Initiative, which is pushing for an environmental justice minor on campus as well. And alongside that, this work is also part of a nonprofit that I run called Sacred Earth Alliance, which is an eco-liberation nonprofit that aims to shift power and narrative back to the front lines, while centering decolonial climate education and closing the resource gap with frontline communities and the research in institutions and the funding in institutions. So before we begin, I just wanted to acknowledge my personal positionality. So in India, I'm not from a tribal community, and although my family is native to India, there is different definitions of indigeneity in India, which is contested and explained in different ways. So I'm speaking from the context of my family and their experiences and wisdom from being on the land for generations, but I'm not trying to claim that I know what it's like to be from a tribal community in rural parts of India. Um, and yeah, so get started. So, within India's history, there's been various empires, invasions, domination, immigration, caste restructuring, cultural homogenization, and multiple waves of urbanization, which makes it very difficult to pinpoint indigeneity within the same definition within, settler colonial countries. So most of the population in the country can identify as native to India, but they are technically not indigenous because they're not from a tribal community, which is how that definition works in the context of India. So, in many ways, the definition can become politicized, especially by nationalist groups. But in what it actually means is communities that have resisted homogenization over centuries. So we have the term called Adivasi, which means original forest dwellers, and we also use the term tribal communities and scheduled tribes, which is denoted in the instant Indian Constitution. So next I wanted to focus a bit on the narratives around climate solutions, which is really focused on a very technocratic approach, especially in the West, where we feel that technology can bring ourselves out of the climate crisis, but without addressing the roots of the crisis, which is, racial capitalism and a system that is built on slavery and genocide, we can't fully address a real climate solution. And within the context of, climate sciences, of ecological sciences, there's a real delegitimization of indigenous knowledge, practice, and life from all parts of the world. And instead, these new technologies, which are disconnected from the front lines, are centered instead of returning to various indigenous sciences. And because of this, there's a lot of failures in climate solutions because of greenwashing. So, for example, there's electric vehicles which are promoted as a solution, but when there's poor Congolese children being forced to work in cobalt mines while we're driving EVs in the global north, that's not an actual climate solution. It's just making it feel that way for folks in the global north while perpetuating the same systems that caused this crisis in the first place. And it's important to understand that Indigenous science is not just in the past, but is continuing to develop. Dr. Kavika Winter, who's a Hawaiian scientist reviving Hawaiian marine sciences, noted that the word traditional ecological knowledge implies Indigenous sciences being historical, when this is really something that is continuing to be developed and continuing to be practiced in the present, and can constantly be evolved and developed. And when we talk about climate injustice and climate justice, there is this framework and narrative of tragedy where environmental stories that are focused on communities of color or are focused on the front lines, they're painted with a lot of tragedy. And that really operates under the assumption that communities are supposed to look outwards for solutions rather than focusing on what we can rebuild and what we can create. So this is, the title of this presentation is from the framework of scholar Eve Tuck's Beyond Damage, where we're not just centering the pain that is present in communities, but also what we are doing to rebuild and all of the community-rooted solutions that is happening at the grassroots level. So in the West, climate justice is focused on the expected vulnerabilities of frontline communities without a consideration of why they were made vulnerable. There isn't really a critical understanding because it's easier to pretend that disparity is natural rather than it was made this way. The power, expertise, and knowledge around climate and climate solutions is still consolidated in mostly white communities in the global north. But indigenous people are 5% of the world's population, yet protect 80% of the remaining biodiversity. So even though this is the context within which climate solutions are coming up, there isn't a lot of media attention on it. So we need to consider what about the knowledge that frontline communities hold, and what about the indigenous-led solutions, where there is a bottom-up community-led approach. So frontline communities can be impacted the most, but that shouldn't just be the only focus in the media or in the news or in what we're talking about in our day-to-day lives. Frontline communities also hold the most knowledge and expertise and have a great amount of community power. So when damage is centered, there is a myth that is reinforced that communities of color and frontline communities and indigenous communities can only understand the effects of the crisis, while rich, white, global north communities are the source of all solutions. So, in a lot of indigenous cultures globally, there is a theme of reciprocity, balance, and respect, both with each other, with the earth, with all forms of life. And in an Indian context, these beliefs are deeply rooted in our philosophy and everyday practices, where life is understood as life and not as something to extract from or as a resource. And there is an element of mutual respect where we pray to everything. You know, if you accidentally kick someone or you step on a plant, you always pray to them. And we have a phrase which is 𝐂𝐨𝐾𝐲𝐥, which means the world is one family. And when we see each other as ourselves, that really promotes this understanding of balance and harmony and reciprocity. But these traditional values are not really reflected in state-sanctioned climate solutions. The Indian government always often follows a neoliberal and Western development model where they're equating growth as money as at the expense of communities who resist and still live in balance. So at this point, the Indian government doesn't really need an external colonizer because they're still playing by the white man's playbook, and that is adopted by the same people that they were originally trying to oppress. So climate policy in India is still largely top-down, technocratic, and focused on capitalist growth. And we're seeing that especially today with there's certain hills that are being carved, tribal communities that are being, expelled from their own homelands. So this is very much at odds with each other, the values in which that are traditional versus the government that is adopting Western frameworks of climate. So in the context of how do we re-indigenize climate solutions, it means that climate solutions doesn't mean rejecting Western science, but it means that indigenous wisdom cannot be lip service or an afterthought or something that is just included to say that they included it. Frontline leaders should shape the priorities, methods, decisions, and outcomes, and not just consulted. And it shouldn't be added at the end for diversity. And this is something that my family has experienced. You know, they have stories about how institutions like the UN or the Rainforest Alliance have entered frontline communities. They take their stories, they, take photos, and they just leave after that. And they're the ones who are getting the funding, they're getting the credit, but it is not, trickling down to the community level. The communities are the ones who are doing the most action, yet not receiving any level of acknowledgement or credit or compensation. And it is becoming very difficult to resist and stay doing that work because of these multiple reasons of people stopping them from continuing, and whether that's a lack of support, a lack of funding, or just a lack of other people doing the same thing. So we really need to reframe how we approach climate solutions and moving beyond extraction to reciprocity, from consultation to community leadership, and really having a greater capital shift, a narrative shift, and a power shift into community-centered, indigenous-led solutions all around the world. So I wanted to take a moment to highlight 3 solutions that are happening in different parts of India that with communities that I've worked with in the past. The first one is from my family, who are tea farmers in Assam, which is a state in eastern India. So my family, as I mentioned before, they're tea farmers, but I wanted to provide some context into the history of tea in India. I know that today India might be synonymous with tea and chai, but it wasn't always the case. It originated within a colonial system in the 1800s, where there was a British interest in dominating the tea industry. So they turned to their colony of India for profit because they wanted to compete with China's reigning tea industry at the time. And while tea, it is native to Assam. It was used as medicine by the Singpo tribe, but it was never cultivated to the extent in which it became cultivated by the British, where thousands of hectares of land were cut down, primary forests were cut down, and a brutal system of indentured servitude was enforced to create a plantation economy, where the entire economy of Assam became synonymous with tea. So not only did the ecology shift, the economy shifted, but also the social systems became completely skewed, and there was a really damaged relationship with the earth and with the land itself because of the system of indentured servitude, where people from other parts of India were tricked and brought to work on the plantation system in Assam. So we can understand tea as a cash crop and a blood crop while there were famines, man-made famines that were ravaging the subcontinent. And the story of tea is not unique to tea. It is also the same story of cobalt, of coffee, of diamonds, of oil, of hotels, of bananas, of these supplies, of these really colonial supply chains all around the world that have damaged the relationships to the land for many indigenous communities. So within the context of my family, that we've been tea farmers since 1857, which was right after the first battle of independence, also known as the Sepoy Mutiny. So my ancestor Harish Bakshi, he bought back wasted tea plantations, abolished indentured servitude, revived the indigenous ecology, economy, and autonomy. Um, because of what he was able to do with transforming the tea plantations back into farms. However, today my family is really grappling with the impact of the Green Revolution, impacts of centuries of empire and monocropping, neoliberal agricultural reform at the national level, corporatization, and of course, accelerated climate change in the region. And all of these combined together force a transition to industrial agriculture, but they really want to return back into indigenous agriculture and regenerative practices. But it is impossible at the moment with the current political state, the lack of farmers' rights, constant debt cycles, and depleted soil conditions, and grappling with all of this while being at the front line of the climate crisis. So it's very easy to want to sip organic tea, but the reality of what it makes this possible is very complex. There's only one organic tea farmer in all of Assam that I know of, and organic farming doesn't mean indigenous farming. It just means like a lack of pesticides, but that doesn't mean that the entire ecosystem is being revived. That doesn't mean that the relationships between workers and farmers and the land is restored. It doesn't really mean a shift back into our perspectives and our philosophy. So having only one farmer transition, especially when she isn't able to sustain that transition, isn't a viable solution within this region. And it's especially ironic because India used to be an agrarian economy, But today there's a huge profit outflow into Western multinationals, and that are storing all of this profit, and it's not being redistributed into the communities that are growing the tea itself. So, in terms of what is happening at the local level, there's a lot of grassroots action and mobilization, a lot of which my family's spearheading, whether that means, having workshops to teach other farmers traditional farming, or my uncle, he has a plot of land that he's been converting into practicing fully regenerative practices. And he also has a little lab where he's been testing different native polycropping. So there's a lot of solutions that are happening at the grassroots level, but there isn't any government support, especially because this part of India is typically ignored by the central government. So it is really important to revitalize these traditional ways of tending the land, because not only does this shift the environment, but it also restores balance in every aspect. The economy will no longer be dependent on one product. The social structures will become more equitable. The health of the community improves, and women and tribal communities are centered. So in this idea of what we want the land to transform into, we hope that the frontline community is not just a label of desolation and tragedy, but it should be an indication of why, my family of tea farmers or this neighboring community should be leading the solutions, and why they should be returning to the perspectives with which we tended the land in the past, and how do we get back into that. So regenerative agriculture is a return, and there's many names to call it, whether it's permaculture, organic farming, but what my family typically leads with is indigenous-led agroforestry in the region, where we're addressing the impacts of famines, addressing the impacts of food insecurity, while also reviving the land. And one thing that we are trying to do is having our tea that is grown in India direct trade to other parts of the world. What really happens in the tea industry is that the middlemen keep a lot of the profit, and the folks that are making the tea are not respected as much as the tea itself, and they're not respected along the supply chain, even though they're the ones who are, they're the ones who are tending the tea in the first place. So within our tea brand that my community in Assam and we're starting here is to make it direct trade, so it's farmer to consumer. There's no middleman, there's no tea auction, there's no mixing of bought leaves, which are leaves that haven't really been tested. And we can trust the source in this way. There's no pesticides in the plot of land that my uncle is transitioning back to indigenous practices. There's no microplastics, plantation exploitation, and the profits are reinvested into indigenous regenerative agriculture. Something that we've noticed is that a lot of people want to transition, but they're unable to because there isn't that extra funding. There isn't that anything that would alleviate a cycle of debt for the farmers. So if there is that support directly, not only is the consumer getting better quality tea that is good for you and you know where it's originated from, but also the people that are growing the tea are respected. They're getting the profit. They're able to transition their land into growing the kind of agriculture that our ancestors practiced, and to restore an element of balance to the land as well. So the next solution that I wanted to uplift is ecotourism in West Bengal, which is another state in eastern India. So this is in Jhargram, West Bengal, which is a rural area of the state. And there is a project called the All India Coordinated Project on Agroforestry, which has centers in different parts of India. And this one in particular is at the school on agroforestry called Bidhan Chandra Krishi Vishwavidyalaya. And it is an ecotourism project. So essentially, the tribal community, the Santali community, is leading the project, where it has multiple elements. So there is a school for the children of parents who passed away from alcoholism. There is an epidemic of alcoholism in this region, and they want to make sure that the children are taken care of. And the school is run completely by women, and it is that village is also an ecotourism hub for urban folks who come and stay for a week. They have cottages, and there can be, cultural exchange where people are learning about the Santali culture in the region. They're learning about the different dance forms, the different methods of agriculture, and having a way to understand that and be immersed in that, aside from their urban lifestyles. And all the funds from the ecotourism goes to support farmers in the region and converting soy plantations into agroforestry farm by using indigenous methods. So in this example, it is really how can we revive the community through how can we revive the ecosystem through reviving the community? They're completely interlinked. And when we impact one, we're always impacting the other. And we can see in this example, which has been very successful, that the community has been uplifted and shifted just in the past decade because of this ecotourism project. So like in the last example, the economy is central to understanding a way to build a different solution and having a different alternative model of development away from the capitalist models of growth that we've been accustomed to. So the last solution that I wanted to focus on is seed saving in Uttarakhand, which is a state in North India. So within across all of India, farmers are stuck in cycles of dependency, and it is estimated that almost 90% of indigenous seed varieties in India have become extinct. And this is because of a lot of reasons, whether it's industrial farming, hybrid varieties of seeds, and farmers being forced to get seeds that they can't keep. And this is not just a problem in India, but across the world, but is especially evident because of our past as an agrarian economy, and the transition in post-colonial India has been far from the vision of what it should have been during the freedom movements. So there's a lot of native food that is continuously becoming extinct, for example, millets. And even during colonial time periods, these foods were mocked. I mean, it was called cowpea and foxtail, but that was our indigenous forms of grains that we would rely on. And there are movements to revitalize and revive these forms. But because of the corporate control of seed markets, there's just a lot of barriers and difficulties, and cycles of debt and farmer suicides. And However, there's a lot of community-led approaches of seed saving, particularly led by tribal women, that are becoming more and more common across India. And one example, one hub of this is Navdanya, which means, the name means the nine sacred grains, and it is an organization founded by Vandana Shiva. And they have women-led indigenous seed saving projects that supports uh, that supports farmers all across India. So they're teaching traditional farming. There's around 500,000 farmers trained. There's 55 seed banks all across the region. And it is the largest direct market organic fair trade network in the country. They also have 𝐂𝐥𝐸 Vidyapith, which means School of the Seed, or they also call it Earth University, where there's folks and coming from all over the world to learn from not just Vandana Shiva, but also everybody who works on the land tending it, and to learn about traditional Indian farming mechanisms. And the picture on the right, it shows some of the grains that they've been saving. I visited Navdanya a few years ago, and their seed library is extremely extensive and protecting so much of our traditional grain varieties. And there's some seeds that you can only find in their seed banks. It's not anywhere else. And they're trying to make that not the case, because they want to distribute the seeds and have more seed banks across the nation. So in summary, it is really important to emphasize that when communities carry the solutions, there is a greater impact on the climate, on the community itself, and that has ripple effects all around the world. So it is really unsustainable to have these shifts without a direct capital shift and support, because a lot of these frontline solutions need funding, And one example is my uncle, he tried to transition the entire farm into regenerative agriculture and into back to our traditional farming practices, but it was unsuccessful because he didn't have enough capital. So it's really important to let the communities lead, but also have a capital shift globally as well. And within India, we really hope to return to our ancestral practices and not as a political tool that is adulterated by the right-wing nationalists, but to actually acknowledge our nuanced history and focus on different models of development, especially within our economy and within you know, our social relationships as well. So having a non-capitalist economy, reciprocal relationships, and restoring the balance. And modernity shouldn't equate to westernization, hoping to emphasize indigenous futurity, where we can continue to develop our practices and our knowledge, where it's not just portrayed as being ancient or traditional, but something that is still alive in the present and still continuing to be developed. So there's a lot of greenwash solutions, technocratic approaches, but ultimately, without acknowledging the roots of the crisis, none of this will be solved and nothing will change. So the only way to really have a true shift is by focusing on the bottom-up approach and what the communities are already building at the grassroots levels. And before I head out, I just wanted to plug that we have a event coming up tomorrow at Open Test Kitchen for an exhibition that we're launching. And there's going to be free tea tasting, and you can learn about all the solutions happening on our community's farms back in Assam. So hope to see you there. But yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate you all having me here and excited to hear the rest of the presentations.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was amazing. I had the pleasure of being at a tea event that you hosted with your beautiful family, your mom and dad. That was amazing at UC Berkeley, and I'm so happy that you were able to join us this morning. And thank you. And again, congratulations on your graduation. And I hope to see you again in person sometime soon if you're still in the Bay. All right. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was amazing. Does anybody have any questions or anything before you go? You can raise your hand if you like. We have a couple minutes. But if not, that's fine too. Let me look. I don't see any hands. No. All right. Well, thank you again. I hear a dog barking. I hope you guys didn't hear that, but all right. Well, have a blessed day and thank you, everyone. Thank you. And we'll see you soon. So next we're gonna have another amazing woman, planting Oceania. Oh my goodness. Haven't had enough coffee this morning. Planting ocean. Yes, thank you. Pacific Islander Resistance and Dreaming with Loa. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name. And she's the co-founder of this organization, a storyteller, educator, poet, and community farmer organizer. Thank you, Loa, for being here.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. It's very exciting to be back at the second take. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for your organization. Thanks, Jack, for doing the technicalities. And so my name is Loa Numeitolu. Malo Leikainga, Malo, that's thank you in my language, Tongan. Malo e ofa, malo e tauhitawa, whakawhitai, whakawhitai. E whakamalo ki he whangamalia ko eni ke whaiha ki tala noa mo tolu. Malo. Okay. Let's see. And then Jack, you're also going to put up my PowerPoint too, huh? When you, okay. So, so as Councilwoman Davila said that I am the co-founder with my sister Fuifui Lupa Numeitolu of Planting Oceania. So Planting Oceania is Pacific Islander led and a Pacific Islander group that calls in Pacific Islanders here in the Bay Area to join us to plant our Pacific Islander ancestral plants, foods and medicines, and also textile plants in order for us to connect to the land. This Lishan territory that we do, that Planting Oceania, and that also we live in, and that we follow the leadership of the Lishan. And then also we do the same because we have a spot too in Filoli in Woodside, San Mateo County. And then we do have another spot that has just opened for us to work on in with Weed Women Eco Artists Dialogue, a small lot in West Oakland. But first of all, to begin my talk with, and I guess the real way for me to settle, to use that word, into this presentation is to give a lot of thanks and respect to the indigenous people of this land that my family has settled in this land, and to the Lishan. And it was a great honor to see the tribal chair Karina Gould this morning open up this meeting, and then to also hear that she's also helping a councilwoman in the organization with their planning and what they're doing. And so it's really great to be part of it. I'm good. So I am a co-founder of Planting Oceania, and that's a really important project that I'm working on right now. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm going to talk about Planting Oceania. That's going to be, I think, I'm going to talk about Planting Oceania. And in the way of talking about Planting Oceania, which is the project I'm doing right now, I'm going to talk about indigenous ways that are being offered by indigenous people and indigenous leadership to help all of us here, those of us here in the Bay Area, those of us around the world, to deal with what is going on with climate catastrophe, all the violence, the destruction that's happening all around us. And Shreya, I also want to thank you very much for your presentation before me. Thank you so much for that wisdom. And so all the things that you talked about too, is what I want us to hold that in our hearts, because of course you do, because that's why we're here together. You made, you've taken your time off your very busy schedule to be here to have this conversation about how do we live at this time of great violence, of great terror. My sister Fui, who is a professor at UC Santa Cruz, is doing her work on, and she calls it white terror, that is happening right now. And that has been happening too with our ancestors who have come to this country, the United States. And also it has happened to us in the Pacific as kids who were born in Tonga, Tonga. If you look at my slide right there, it's that one, Tonga is by Fiji. That's where we were born, and we came here in the 1980s. And so that is something that I want to offer here. And by way of doing that is to talk about, I was talking to a young person in Planting Oceania this week, and I've been talking to them in the past weeks. Then they have told me, hey, Loa, I feel this great discomfort right now in my life. With all the things that are going on in the world that are, the terror of ICE killing people, the terror of LGBTQ, trans and queer people being slaughtered, and also their rights taken away from them, and the children. Of course, the terror of Palestine, very present in our daily lives, although we live here on Turtle Island. And, he said that I just feel that I'm not connected. I'm not connected to things. My parents, he's an only child. My parents live in a different part of the country, and I live here. And also, like, even with my work, I feel disconnected from my coworkers, and I just feel I don't know what's going on, and this is something that has happened to me like every day, and it just seems I'm feeling that it's getting worse. It's a state that's getting worse with me. And I listened to this person, and I can totally relate to that too. That is something that I also go through, and that I have gone through in many in very severe ways. And so I guess what I also want to offer in my presentation today is that if any of you feel that way, to have this conversation, that I do know that this is not an isolated case of a person just feeling this way, but it's a our what's happening to us is of course because of what's happening around us. And I guess in talking about planting Oceania and talking about the work that we've done, that my sister Fui Fui and I have done, and with all the Pacific Islanders and also the indigenous people, and then also many of you have helped us. That's how we keep going. So let me get into my presentation, but I just want you to hold that in your mind. And I hope that as I go through my presentation that we talk, that I bring up points that are connected to this to bring us a connection by the end of the presentation. And so here is a lot of people don't know where the Pacific Islands are. It is something that you hear here in the Bay Area, the Pacific Islands. So where are the Pacific Islands? Here's a map that I have here, and it's with a lot of the island native names. And then some of them are just transliteration of names that from what like the discoverers, the European discoverers gave them. And so here we are with for people to look at. I guess I'm sorry you've been looking at it the whole time I've been talking. And so we have some islands that you know very well are Tonga, Tonga right there. That's where I'm from. And you've heard of these islands, Samoa. You've heard of Fiji, right? You of course definitely know Hawaii because that has become a state of the United States of America, right? Which is wrongly have been done so. And so, but actually, there's about 30,000 archipelagos in the Pacific. And you don't see, not a lot of them are going to be shown in this map because these are just the ones that are more familiar to the West. And so, yeah, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, many times we get the question like, how did planting Oceania start? Because we just started in 2023. And to answer that question, and the answer to that question is no, we didn't just start in 2023. Planting Oceania began where Pacific Islanders, and I feel that Planting Oceania is a culmination of, and it's not a culmination as in it's the end, but it's another step in our journey with me and my sister. And I guess our journey reflects a lot of the Pacific Islanders here in the Bay Area and here on Turtle Island, in our journey in learning more about who we are and what does it mean to be Pacific Islander. And one of those things that are really important to us was in 2011. And in 2011, we heard the call for everyone in the Bay Area to go and stand with the indigenous people of the lands of these territories that we of course found out we didn't know at the time. We found out later that it's called Lisjan territory, and then that we found out the Chichenyo names for these territories and the rightful stewards of them. And so that was Țigăruțe. Țigăruțe was an action that happened in 2011 where for 109 days people were called in, and there were the leadership, there were the native leadership who were there to call people in from the Bay Area to stand with them to protect the sacred site, Țigăruțe in Vallejo. And so as we were part of a group called Oceania Coalition of Northern California. And we went to, and when we heard that call, we had been working I have to slow down. We had been working for actually a very unprecedented gathering of Pacific Islanders in the Bay Area for Save Rapa Nui. So Rapa Nui is also known as, it's a archipelago that is a territory of Chile right now. And at the time in 2011, the Chilean government brought in their forces, their security forces, to take the Rapa Nui people out of their homes so they could turn that island into, so they could turn their homes into hotels. And so with that great violence, we here in on Turtle Island heard about it, and with leadership of Mahina, elder, a Rapa Nui elder, we organized Pacific Islanders to learn about, we had teach-ins to learn about Save Rapa Nui, about the Rapa Nui relatives that we have, and to organize and to go and take a petition to the Chilean embassy here in San Francisco, and to say to stop this violence, which actually with the help of different people all over the world, that violence did end. But of course, the struggle of Rapa Nui as indigenous people continues with the colonization of Chile. Jack, can I ask you to please just return to the map? Thank you. So here we are back in the map. Yeah, you guys see Rapa Nui? Thank you, Jack, for doing that. Yeah, the English word for that is Easter Island. So it's down there, and it's around the area where that's called Eastern Polynesia. It's around the area where maybe some people have been to Tahiti. I mean, those are familiar places that people have learned about. It's just that when we're in this map, I just want to talk about that this is what I talk about when we talk about the Pacific Islands. And this is and for us in what the Europeans call Polynesia, these islands that we have that you see of Tonga, Samoa, Aotearoa on the bottom there, and Tokelau and Tahiti, those islands, we call this whole group over here that you see, we call it Moana Nui. And then, yeah, you hear about the movie Moana, which is actually a big corporate franchise of Disney. But that comes, that's another exploitation of using our cosmology, our Pacific Islander cosmology, to bring a lot of money to Disney and their conglomerates. And but this is Moana Nui for those of us of Polynesia. We call this Moana Nui. Moana meaning the deep ocean. Nui is a suffix in the end meaning all of this, all of this. So I want us to look at West Papua, where it says West Papua and Papua New Guinea to your left-hand side, which is actually, and as you see, they're on top of Australia, right? And those islands, that big island is actually one island. And that one island is the second largest island in the world, next to, of course, Australia, which is its neighbor. But West Papua and Papua New Guinea, that is part of Moana Nui. And so also in the area that is called West Papua and Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, you see those islands, Solomon Islands, New Caledonia, Kanaki. Our whole area, which includes all of us, it's known as One Sol Wada. That is a pidgin way of saying it, because these islands that the Europeans call Melanesia, to differentiate them because of the color of their skin, Mela, black. But that now there are social movements in these islands that take that upon them and use that as a very positive thing. So the Melanesians, they use pidgin as a language to unite them, and because there's thousands of different languages, there's thousands of different cultures in Melanesia, what is known as Melanesia. And so that they call this area that includes Polynesia, and on the top you see the Northern Mariana Islands, Guahan, which is Guam, the Marshall Islands, and islands like Palau, you see on the left. that's called Micronesia. So the Melanesians use one Salwada to unite all of our islands, like the Polynesians have that name, Moana Nui, and one salt water means one salt water. I just want to look at Papua and West Papua for a minute to tell you about one of our biggest struggles that's going on right now. There's a genocide in West Papua. So you see that it's an island that's rich of minerals. So West Papua holds the largest gold mine and copper mines in the world. And in fact, the largest gold mine in the world is called the Freeport-McMoRan gold mine, which is based in Arizona, in the US. So it's a US-based company. So West Papua is going through a genocide right now that has happened since 1969, actually. In 1949, the European explorers the European colonizers who took over that island, they halved the island and the Indonesians took over, the Dutch took over West Papua. And in 1969, when the Dutch left, there was a period when they did leave West Papua, and they left what is known as Indonesia today. And they when they left, they were offering West Papua, the indigenous people of West Papua, a chance, you may say, a chance to be able to take over the country and to have an independence in West Papua. However, what happened is, as I told you about all these different resources natural resources that they have in West Papua, the United States did come in, and the United States did come in, and they forced the Dutch, the Netherlands at the time, the government at the time, to give West Papua to Indonesia, and so that's why Indonesia has West Papua today. And today Indonesia well, not only today, as I said, since 1969, Indonesia has taken over just like mining companies, palm oil companies, different companies taking over the land, displacing indigenous people, and that's what they've been doing in West Papua. So there are people from all over the world who come into West Papua and take over the natural resources and make so much money of it. Some of those companies that we are really here in the Bay Area are really familiar with, and we see that in our oil, like in the oil companies are like, say, Union Oil, Amoco, Conoco, Phillips, Texaco, Mobil, Shell, Oppenheimer, BHP, and Rio Tinto. So those are some companies, just some of the companies that are that continue to displace the West Papuans by killing them. I mean, we understand this from watching all the videos of Palestine each day of Gaza, and there's no other way to say it but to go in and to take the villagers and the indigenous people living in West Papua and just killing them so they could build their mines. And so there is a movement called Free West Papua right today. There's a very strong movement, and it's a transnational movement, just as much as their companies are their oil and mining companies are transnational companies. The movements for Free West Papua are a transnational movement, and we do call all of you to please join us in that. So with that, I know that this is not so exciting that you're not seeing the photos, but I just also now want to go to Hawaii, where, up there on the north, and people are very familiar with Hawaii. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have gone there for a vacation. And so in Hawaii, there are many things that the Hawaiians our relatives in Hawaii are calling for. But one of them that I would like to talk about today is Mauna Kea, the sacred mountain, Mauna Kea, the origin of the cosmology for a lot of Kanaka, the Hawaiians, the Native Hawaiians of Hawaii. And on the Big Island, the nickname Big Island, on Hawaii Island, there is a mountain there, and the mountain is called Mauna Kea. And the UC system is very complicit in this. They hold the largest fund to pay to create a 18-story telescope. That is about 185 feet. Yeah, because we always say 30 meter and people don't, because we don't have the meter system. It's about 185 feet story telescope to put up in the Sacred Mountain that also has it's an ecosystem of its own, and it has aquifers, ancient aquifers that feed the whole island, and of course feed the Pacific. So this is a really important issue for us Pacific Islanders, is Mauna Kea. And so although the TMT, that's the name of the project to build a telescope, and there's already 13 such telescopes. This proposed telescope will be even larger than the others, but it doesn't mean that the others are just like, say only 100 feet. They're just as large and imposing on Mauna Kea. I've had the honor to learn from the Mauna Kea protectors, and which is actually something that's open to all of us too here. It's just to go to the Mauna Kea events that are held, and that you'll see advertised. So join them. So to learn, and so I had, just a great honor to have this kind of education by going to these things and following their lead, and hearing, let's see, and Kumu Puake's talked about how actually for many years before 2009, when it was first proposed by TMT for the new telescope to be built, that since then there has been resistance against that since then, and of course they weren't listened to. And so I think it's 2015 was one of the largest ones that a lot of you also know about, and then a couple of years after, 2018, where a lot of people stood up in the Mauna. And the Mauna is also a transnational movement going on to stop the TMT from building on the Mauna. What I have learned from this as an Indigenous person from the Pacific, the southern part of the Pacific Ocean, as you can see in the map, that's where we're located, where we have been so invisibilized, made invisible in the map of the global map, and like our presence in the world, even our presence in the Bay Area is so invisibilized, especially putting us under the rubric Asian Pacific Islander, as if we don't have our own part of the region, as if we don't steward our sacred Pacific Ocean, the southern part of the Pacific Ocean. All respect, I don't need to make that statement. Actually, I don't need to defend myself in saying that. I need to actually just say the facts. Is that, we are a sovereign region. We, as Indigenous people, we're the stewards of the southern part of the Pacific Ocean. And because of that, we have connections to all of the Native and Indigenous tribes here in the Bay Area and California, because we come up here, right? The Pacific, our mama ocean comes up here to the northern part of California, and of course up to Alaska and northern and all the way up. So, yeah, that is why my story is very important. Although today I also am, I feel in a quiet way about telling it. But so that is what I want to go into, and then let's go back, please, Jack, to my slides, and I'm coming to an end of this. So yeah, let's stay in that in Sogorea. And so, like, say, me and my kid coming here to the United States in the 80s, when we were growing up in that big ocean that you just saw, we were told that our islands were just small islands, that we have no significance in this big capitalist corporate world. Like, what can we give? You know? And I guess that's what I want to say. Is that I really learned in my life that it's important to stay with my ancestors and to follow in their footsteps and to follow their leadership. And they're indigenous, my ancestors. And they have a great knowledge of how we as like these Tongan kids also grew up in a lot of in addictions that happened in our family. Our father was an alcoholic and created a lot of mayhem, but it was because he went to a boarding school in Melbourne, Australia. He was taken out of Tonga at 9 and returned at 17, with not even remembering how to speak his beloved native tongue, and becoming a full-fledged drunk at the age of 17. And of course, and the harm of that kind of colonization upon our family, and continues to be here with us. So in that journey, what I really learned, and I want to go back to in my answer to this young person in Planting Oceania, who said, well, I just feel so disconnected in this world right now. I guess what I want to say, it's by the grace of my ancestors. And I said to him, you're part of Planting Oceania. This is not a fluke, Is there such an English word? Okay, I just brought it from okay. This is not just a coincidence. Remember, it's your ancestors who brought you here. We're here in Planting Oceania. That we're here with the leadership of the Lishan. That we were able to go, 𝐂𝐤𝐴 happened before Planting Oceania started in 2023. But that's why I say we didn't start at 2023. That we were able to go to 𝐂𝐤𝐴. We were able to see the leadership firsthand and experience that. Can we go to the next slide, please, Jack? That actually, who knows, like how would this happen? That also in 2011, that we were able to connect with an ancient cultural practice that because of colonization was prohibited from our Pacific. But 6 Vaka came from the Pacific. It was a Te Mana o Te Moana voyaging thing that happened. And we met them at Alcatraz Island with the leadership of the indigenous people here. Karina was there too. Then the next one, please, and I know I need to end. It is our ancestors that help us with all the weakness of our lives, that we're able to work with others, to organize, to create. Like this is my sister Fui worked with Fui worked with I Don't Know More, and then also that's how we met David Solnit. Of course, he's the great activist here in the Bay Area, our beloved David, to be in this was the Oakland climate change thing in 2015, and then I was able to organize 2018 Rise for Climate in San Francisco, and all these signs are from David Solnit, and all these signs, and of course continuing to stand with our with the indigenous people, and of course the climate warriors here in the Bay Area. I see that my time has ended, and so I want to end with saying that okay, Laura, you started with talking about the young person who had that our connection. I mean, who feels very disconnected at this time of great violence and destruction here on Turtle Island, what is known as the United States today, and here in what's known as the Bay Area today, here on Lishan territory, where I'm talking to you from Berkeley. But that's why I'm so grateful. I feel this is what we have for us as Pacific Islanders. This is what we have. And I would say this is what Karina Gould teaches us too, as the Lishan leader of where we live today, and the steward, teaches us that this is what we have today to live a connected life, is for us to come together, for us, like Councilwoman Davila is doing, for us to come together to share our stories and to fight, to stand up. Like they say for the Mauna Kea movement, 𝐂𝐤𝐴 stand up for the mountain. And and so that's like our lives. Stand up for your own life, in the way of us to stand together as a community. And yeah, I guess that's my time, everybody. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I knew you would be. I'm so honored and humbled to have you here. And thank you again for this amazing presentation. Um, you did an excellent job. And I know it's like we have to rely on our ancestors. We don't know when they're there. They're there with us all the time. Sometimes we can feel their presence more than others, but we have to listen to their guidance in ways that are nonverbal. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. It was great. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's like people that I meet, like I don't know any of our speakers really that well, but they're always so welcoming and loving and kind to me. And I know they have they do amazing work and we need to hear from them. So I'm always grateful. And I don't ever know what's going to happen, but it's always been great. So, and you've been very, very kind to me and my family. So I really appreciate you and your sister, your beautiful sister. You're both beautiful, so thank you so much. And if anybody has any question, Jack has his hand raised.
Oh, yeah, Loa, that was fantastic. I love looking at that map and learning about all those places. One place comes up in the news quite a bit is Tuvalu, I think. Is it because of the
right?
How do you say it?
Tuvalu.
Tuvalu.
Yes.
Okay, but because it's so low lying and the ocean rising and people are, losing. I was wondering if you could comment on what's the status of that right now.
Yeah, a lot of people, in fact, in Tuvalu, I think Tuvalu had some of the first, there's such a thing, everyone, called climate change refugees. So they're, and it's legal. It's a legal term. It's where people and a lot of people in Tuvalu and around that area where you see on the map Tuvalu is a lot of the other areas, like the Marshall Islands too. They're low-lying atolls. So when the water rises, their lands are, they don't have anything to live on. And so Tuvalu is one of the lands too, is one of the lands that has had the first climate change refugees, asking other places like the United States, like New Zealand, if they could move there because their homelands have been destroyed. And Tuvalu is a country of so much dignity because they also say that they're not going to run around and try to just only find a place like wherever they can live so they can, like, there's this rush of like they need to find a new home because the water is rising. I've always seen that their leaders always take their time and say, this is our homelands. And we always actually insist on, in like all of the climate change COPs, we always insist on the other islands who are causing this, the ocean rise, to show up, to stand out with us and to show up and change the ways that you're creating this cause of rising tides in our islands. They're always calling the big countries like the United States to stand up and do their responsibility. That's how they approach this, and that they always also talk about their ancestors and their great role in the Pacific. So you saw the map of the Pacific Islands, and the ocean is our mother to us. So the ocean is actually our grandmother. She's our grandmother, and she's not our enemy. So the rising tides for us is not an enemy. That's not an enemy. That just shows us, because if you saw also the 2018 what is it, banners. You saw many that says, we're not drowning, we're fighting. And so that's a call by the group called the Pacific Climate Warriors. And that's a call that we all carry too. We're not drowning, we're fighting. So yeah, so I guess my answer to you, Jack, is that we bring in how we stand strong at this time of the waters rising, is that we call on our ancestors in not like a new agey way. It's not what we're doing here. You know, that is who we are. That is our foundation. We've been taught. And so we call on our ancestors for this fight to be with us in the front lines. And so, and we know that, and that's our grandmother, the Pacific Ocean. And I know that they stand with us.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jack, for that question. And next, we're going to move on to our next amazing speaker, who I just randomly met at a party too, and asked him to speak. It was a great party too, by the way. So this next title is Colombia, Country of Mega Diversity. My name, Mauricio Zambrano, Guardian of the Territory. Mauricio is a trainer of the Bay Area farmer-to-farmer training and an urban agricultural engineer. And Jack, his son, Juan, is going to help him with the slides. So if you want to make him a co-host, I guess you guys got that all together. Great, thank you.
Excuse me, I have some problem with the technology.
That's
But-
okay. I don't see you though.
Okay.
Are you on the phone?
Yes,
Oh, there you are. Yes.
Yes.
Yay. Okay.
yes.
Problem
Yes.
solved.
Thank
Okay,
you
go
for
for it.
waiting for me.
Okay.
Thank you, Cheryl. I remember when we meet in the party and start to friendly relationships. Well, my presentation for today is about my country and the situation about the indigenous communities, and I call Colombia mega diversity country. The next one, Juan, please. Colombia is the context, the biographical context is has the strategical position in the South American continent, has the two seas, the only country has two seas, has the three mountain range cordilleras, has two rivers, the six natural regions. It's special because when the 1% of the emerging land has the 10% of the biodiversity in the planet. The next one. This is like a statistical, biological statistical. Our country has the first position in the diversity of the birds and amphibians, the second place in the plants and the orchids, and the third one in the reptiles and mammals. About the indigenous community, it's very important, the diversity too. We have 116 indigenous communities around of the country, and near of the 73 language. Yeah, this is the special RIC position in the communities indigenous land. The next. But not only the communities indigenous recognize it, and we have the contact. In Colombia, we have two communities and the voluntary isolated state. About 2 countries ago, they decided to voluntarily isolate themselves in the Colombian Amazon, specifically in the Rio Puré National Park. You can see the photos. And they decided to isolate, to voluntarily isolate, because the fighting of the free colonization, slavery, and the rubber exploitation. Fortunately, the government of Colombia, respect the decision of the jury Passe communities indigenous to isolate voluntarily, but they have a risk because near of the Rio Puré area, it's in the border of the Colombia and Brazil, is the increase the illegal mining, yeah, and the illegal miners stay there near of the communities, and the religious communities too. Do you know the religious communities, when they know about the existence of the isolated communities, looking to gain the soul of the communities and chain of the traditional spiritual practice to the Catholic or another religions. The photos is the Rio Puré and the Chiribiquete National Park in the border of the Amazonas and Orinoco regions. The next one. In Colombia, the diversity in the indigenous communities is also, we have the 73 language, yeah, with 5 families, the main language families, and the 73 dialects, especially local in the Amazonas and Orinoco Delta rivers. The next one. But the ecological, the biological and cultural diversity has the important traits around the country. The next one, increase the deforestations. Yeah, by official statistics, talk about like near of the 500,000 of acres each year we lost by the deforestation. The cause of this kind of the deforestation is many, but we can analyze in the next slides. Please, one. The first one, the expansion of the agricultural frontier is with the times the population increase and sometimes demand more food, but the lands, the optimal lands of the best lands to produce food now is the owners of the companies who produce in the industrial crops, for example, sugarcane to produce white sugar, the cattle, in the northern zones, and this is the reason to the small farmers looking the mountains to the expansion of the agriculture. Like in these slides, we can see the high mountains in Colombia we call páramos, change the use of the soil, and together of the traditional plants of the paramo, the high mountains, we can see the cattle or the potatoes crops. Yeah, the same situation is in the warm lands, on the hot lands, and with the people use the fire to burn the lands and increase the agriculture frontier. The next one. The illegal mining is another of the, maybe is the main enigma of the problems in the rainforest of my country, especially in the Amazonas Delta River, in the Orinoco Delta River, and the Andean Mountain too. The illegal mining use generally mercury to produce gold. You know, the gold is part of the fantasy of the human. Yeah, around the history, the people looking the gold for the richness, for show the power and the ambitions, and then the price of the gold in the international market is the stable price and sometimes increase, and for the investments is the opportunity, no? to increase the benefits, especially the economical benefits when you buy gold. Yeah, but in my country, the gold is produced in these conditions. Yeah, destroying the forest, destroying the rivers, destroying the animals, and with the pollution of the waters, and maybe this kind of pollution with mercury make the contact with the fish, maybe the pollution comes to the people and produce disease for the people. The next one. And the introduction of the invasive species is another problem in the biodiversity. The flower is the 𝐂𝐴THIOPIA, 𝐂𝐴THIOPIA flora. Left up is the species developed in the Mediterranean, for the Mediterranean gardens, for the richness Mediterranean gardens in Europe. The tilapia rendali, the right up, is part of the fishing crops. The catfish, the left down, and the bullfrog. Initially, comes to my country like experiments, like with control, but during the times escape of the control of the authorities, especially the environment authorities, and now is the important problem in relation with the biodiversity. The next. The climate change. In the last 50 years, the temperature has increased by 1 degree Celsius. Yeah, and with the consequence in for the environment and for the people too. Cities like Bogota, the capital, Tunja, the Pasto, who stay in the high mountains, the outfit the people has changed, because in the past century, the citizens, the men use the hat, the coat, the umbrella, yeah. And now the people use the short pants, sunglasses, and different. But no, only is the problem with the situation like outfit. For example, the decrease of the snows in the mountains, like Santa Isabel volcano in the left in the backside, is part of is the consequence of the climatic change. We can see some years ago the big area of the Santa Isabel volcano has the important part, and now is a few part of the volcano with the snow. The next. The indigenous communities, one of the problems is the loss of the ancestral territory. Why? Because in the lands of the ancestors of the traditional lands of the indigenous communities is the richness in products like oil, like emeralds, like gold, yeah. And sometimes the people need to go of the territories for the pressure of the companies, and sometimes is the territorial is the pollution with the activities, especially of the petroleum companies. The next one. Sadly, the communities indigenous, it's in the middle of the conflict and violence. The past decade, the government signed the peace agreement with the main group of the guerrilla in Colombia, but these people, the another groups, don't have the agreements with the government, and the indigenous communities, especially in the northwest of the country and the Pacific region, now is in the middle of the conflict. Sometimes they need to leave of the territories, like in the photo of the right, because the battles, the fights between the army of the government of Colombia, or between the different illegal groups, especially for the resource, and now for the coca factories, yeah, is very sad, because the people sometimes need to leave to the ancestral territories. The next one. It's another sad statistics about my country. It's the country with the most environment leaders murdered in the world in the 2023. The situation right now is not changed. We have the same embarrassment statistical, and some ones of the environment leaders of my country is murdered because they defend the territory. It's the voices of the indigenous communities, and this is the reason to the action of the illegal groups. Another situation with the indigenous communities is the health problems with the access to the basic service. Yeah, sometimes for this geographical situation of the indigenous communities, and for the action of the government, they don't have the access to the health service and for the education service. Do you know in the back right, it's like the room of the school in the indigenous communities. Or sometimes the new doctors making the practical go to the communities indigenous without vision about the perspective of the communities. Is not easy to assist them, especially the health assistant with this health service basic. And another situation is the cultural appropriation. You can see sometimes the people when they live of the territory comes from the city, and in the city offer the products, especially the jewelry, and in another part the fashions inspired in the indigenous designs. Yeah, they call the ethnic fashions, but it's part of the appropriation of the culture of the indigenous community. The next one, Juan. And in the cities, the indigenous peoples face their difficulties in mobilizing. Yeah? Sometimes the government, the local government, the regional government, the national government sign the agreements with the communities indigenous, but with the times they forgot about the agreements. And the only way for the communities indigenous to call the government about the disagreement is close the main road, the Pan American road, who make the main road in America, because try to connect North America, Central America, and South America, and the indigenous comes to the road, the Pan American road, and close the road to say, hey, government, do you remember our agreements? You signed it about our situation and the solutions, but the action is the only way
Like it.
to say.
It's pretty good, huh?
The next. What can we do with the situation? The first one, I think so, personally, I think so, is the consume ethically. Yeah, but it's not only with reference of the indigenous communities. It's part of the wildlife style. For example, if you buy by the Amazon, Temu, behind these companies comes the situation of the is the pollution, the workers' exploitation, and another topics. Yeah, and the ethical consume is part important of the actions. In the case of the communities indigenous, is give credit to indigenous communities. Yeah? Avoid the cultural appropriation. Yeah, promote to linguistic respect. Listen their voices and defend their rights. But how I would say, is not only specific with the indigenous communities in Colombia. It's about the indigenous communities around the world. This is the case. The photo is the queer indigenous designer in the northwest part of Colombia, near of the frontier with Panama. Is the Cuna communities indigenous, and L is a customer designer. Is a cloth designer, and he has a small company for and offer the products with the ancestor designs. Well, this is the next one. Thank you. Thanks, and you want questions? And excuse me for my bad English. And this is a few minutes with the video of the indigenous designer. She's the mother talking about the. Can you see the house? The house is with plastic, with is in the poor conditions. Yeah, it's talking about the designer. And it's part of the pret-a-porter with the designers of the. That's all. Thank you, Juan, and thank you for attention. And excuse me for my bad English.
Yeah, that was amazing again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was great. And I see that the number of environmentalists increased by 4, I believe, because I think last time it was 75, I remember. Now it's 79 that have gotten martyred. So that's
Yeah,
terrible. You know, they're murdering environmentalists around the world, I believe too, and also journalists, you know. So I keep shaking my head. We're in a heap of trouble and the heap keeps getting larger and larger. But thank you so much. That was amazing. And thank you, Juan, for helping. Jack has his hand up. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jack.
I guess I'm saying the same thing Cheryl just said, which is it's shocking to see that number of people murdered for environmentalists. And it's especially shocking that Colombia has so many more. I mean, it's terrible in every country, but you know, what is going on? Why does Colombia have so many more than other countries? Do you have any idea?
I think so. It's part of our violence history. Yeah, the difference between the Colombians, the solution of our difference generally is by with the violence. Yeah, in the case of the environment leaders fight for the territory, fight for the land, fight for the rights of the communities of their land. And this is the reason, because they face with the landlords, I don't know, sure, the big owners of the territories, and sometimes of the companies, because we can't forget the companies in the Urabá territory is connected with the transnational of the banana export, and the banana export support the paramilitary groups, and the paramilitary groups kill the leaders of the movements. And the relationship is the power, the land, but especially the market of the money. This is the sad situation.
Mm. Well, thank you for answering that question. It's 11 o'clock, so we're right on time, which is amazing. And I don't know if anybody wants to take a break now, or we had a little bit of a pause before Mauricio started. So maybe we should just keep it moving because our next speaker, or the speaker after our next speaker, we're going to have to take a pause to make sure everybody gets their captions on. So let's just keep it moving for right now. Thank you again, Mauricio.
Thank you,
And
Shari, for the invitation, and thank you, the other guys, to listen me and the situation of my country.
yes, it's wonderful. Colombia, you know, I don't know if I told you this, but when I was in my 20s, my first place well, it wasn't by myself. I rented a room in a house with a woman from Colombia, and she was amazing. And she used to make this great hot chocolate with the mozzarella in the bottom of the cup. Oh my God, so
Yeah.
good.
It's a
That's what I
tradition in
remember.
Colombia. Put the cheese in the chocolate hot.
Yeah, it was so good, so good. And the
Okay.
coffee too. Her
Ah,
coffee
yeah.
was amazing. And she was an artist from Colombia. But anyway, but thank you again. And now we're just going to keep it moving and go to our next speaker. From the Mekong Delta to Dignity, Unheard Voices of Khmer Krom Under the Stress. We're going to hear from Moni Mao, the Vice President of Khmer's Kampuchea Krom Federation. So go ahead, take it away, Moni. And thank you for being here again. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Thank you. Thank you very much for previous speaker. And thank you very much for giving me a chance to come back today. So let me introduce myself. My name is Moni Mao. I volunteer for the Khmer Krom 𝐤 Federation over the last 2 decades. And right now I currently serve as the Vice President. And today I'm actually speaking from our headquarters in Washington, D.C. So I'm in our headquarters quarter now, and tomorrow we have an event here. So I thought I couldn't make it, but yeah, I try to come to speak today. So today I want to talk about the climate justice that impacting the Khmer Krom, the indigenous people of the Mekong Delta, but it's not about talking about a distant idea or a policy slogan. I want to bring to you a real story, the real place, the real people, whose voice I rarely heard, and that's the people of the Mekong Delta. So this is a community on the front line of the climate collapse, and yet they experience the fear. Their solution remain nearly invisible to the world. So today I want to share the story and to explain why the climate justice is impossible without the indigenous justice. So let me start with who the Khmer Krom people are, then what our organization does. So the Khmer Krom people are the original inhabitant of the Mekong Delta, and we call ourselves in our language as 𝐂𝐴𝐐𝐞 Krom. And we have our own Khmer languages. We practice Theravada Buddhism, and in Vietnam, unfortunately, the government of Vietnam does not recognize us as indigenous people, and instead they label us as the ethnic minority. And because of that, our basic right being threatening. So currently, according to the government of Vietnam, right, because they call us ethnic minority, so they framing us that we are the Khmer people moving from Cambodia to live in Vietnam. So that's why they call us an ethnic minority. And because of that, they do not recognize, our ancestral land, or we don't have any legal consultation when we and our activists facing the unjust strike, or we don't even have a seat sitting on the table of climate adaptation planning. So I just show you the the map of the Mekong Delta, just in case you don't see. Yeah, this is in our language, but you can see the color is the province of the name of the province in our language. And now if you look at the map in Vietnam, you won't see this thing anymore. Will be if you look at the corner side, you will see the name on the name of in the Vietnamese only. And you can at the picture below here, you can see where the Mekong Delta is, and then up north, like is China and next to Cambodia. So it's just something that you can see the picture of the Mekong Delta. Yeah, because of injustice, that's why our organization, it was a group of people that fed the country after the Vietnam War, and include my dad and all our elder left the homeland that time when the communists took over Vietnam in 1975, and we formed the community around the world. So the elder came together and formed the organization, and the name of the KKF were adopted in 1996. And so tomorrow we will celebrate 30 years. That's why we are here at Washington DC to celebrate the 30 years of our organization. So the basic work of our organization is we advocate for our basic rights, and we bring the issue to the UN. So last week, our youth spoke at the UN 𝐸𝐺 expert mechanism on the right of indigenous people in Geneva, and beside that, our organization bring the issue to the U.S. government, especially State Department, when the U.S. Vietnam have human rights dialogue. So we work very close with many NGO. When our people get arrested, we publish the press release so let people know, what the issue are people facing. So those are the work of the organization working on. Yeah, unfortunately, Vietnam still thinking that when you advocate for indigenous rights, and they say that because the organization like us is not on the ground, so they label us like, it's like not speaking the truth. We're not a grassroots organization. But imagine that the people back home, when they speak up, we put in jail. So I want to briefly to go over the issue that our people facing, right? So when they label us as ethnic minority, I mean they don't recognize us as indigenous people. And Vietnam is one of the countries that signed to adopt the Declaration of the Right of Indigenous People. And every time if you go to Indigenous People Forum, they call it UN trip in New York in April, you will see that every time our youth represent for our organization deliver speech, Vietnam just go up and deny in front of the UN, right? So we've been fighting with them for, I think, 2004 when our organization joined them, and I was there the first time, and until now, until this year, and first time Vietnam even labeled us at the UN, called us terrorists. So that is the thing, like, yeah, but we, as indigenous people, right, we will fight for our basic right, and thanks to the UN with our platform like that, we will have no voice. No one will know about us. So then let me show you the picture of the indigenous people, the Khmer Krom for the activists since 2013 until now. Last year when I delivered a talk last time, I mentioned that there were 17 people were arrested, but this year they arrest 2 more. You can see the last 3 pictures. It's 2 lady and 1 man was arrested this year, and then they even sentenced to 3 years just for organizing the International Women's Day, or they try to distribute the UN document about indigenous people. And the Buddhist monk, he spoke up just for defending the indigenous right. And you can see the list, like 19 people, and 7 people were released. And one of the Buddhist monk, when he was released, right, he asked to become the Buddhist monk. He was not allowed, right? And the monk, one of the monk, the second row that close to the right, 𝐂𝐴𝐺 from the picture, when he was released, he walked to say meet the parent, and then he came back to temple. He put the robe on, say, when you defrocked me, I did not violate any Buddhist rule. So now I put the robe back because you relieved me from the prison. I put the robe back. I'm still a Buddhist monk. Vietnamese government didn't say anything, but now they behind the scene, they pressure our Buddhist monk in the province. They made this last week or last 2 weeks, we saw the picture of the letter saying that they summoned him and they may defrock him again. So because he's not a monk, they not recognize him as a Buddhist monk. So you can see that, right? The Vietnamese government even have power to decide who are the Buddhist monk or not. So with that, if a person that just to define who they are, like even though you call themselves Khmer Krom, if you go to Mekong Delta, you may not know that they are Khmer Krom. They just call themselves Khmer, or the Vietnamese call them a Khmer Nam Bo. So both basic right, they don't have it, right? And if they speak up, and they may end up in the prison like this human rights activist or even the Buddhist monk. He just want to practice their religion peacefully in the temple. They facing arrest, defrock, and sentence. And you see the head one of the temple, he was sentenced for 6 years, just basically to defend their basic right to practice their religion. So let me talk about, so since this is talking about the climate, right? So I want to talk about the climate impact on the Mekong Delta. Why it's critical for us. So what I've been sharing with you is just about the repression against our people. But now I want to stop here. Just want to, since we talk about this, right? I just want to say that I'm not a climate scientist. I'm just an activist. I just want to tell you the story, right, on behalf of the people who have no voice. They cannot share the story freely like us living in a free world. And for now, many Khmer Krom families are still struggling just to find food put on the table. They don't even have access to climate data or satellite map or adaptation plan. Some of them don't even know that their homeland may be submerged under the water. They don't even know that thing at this point, right? So with the situation right now, if you look at the data about Mekong Delta, you can see that like the level, just the land of the Mekong Delta, it's less than 2 meters, right? If about 2 meters above sea level. If the water raised, like half meter, almost 1/3 of Mekong Delta gone, and the delta is sinking like every year now because they extracting the sand, or the amount of the water is not flowing from the top like before. So that's why make the delta shrinking every year now. So when the land is sinking and the sea level rise, right, and at the same time the entire village may be drowned below the water, right, and the salt water is also moving inland now. So because the salt water moving inland, the farmer living near the ocean, right, they cannot farm anymore, and because of that, they have to leave the village, right? They give up their land. They have to move back to the city. So the next slide, I will talking about, what is the impact of the climate change when they impact on the community like that. So when, because facing the climate impact like that, so what happened to the Khmer Krom who are impacting right now? So for the Khmer Krom, right, when the waters go into their farmland like that means there is economic loss, right? So and then and then beside that, the government, they have a policy that they have to force the Khmer Krom to farm 3 times per year, because Vietnam want to be the country that export the most rice, one of the top country export rice to the world. So in order to produce more rice, they force our farmer to farm 3 times per year, and most of our farmer is poor, right? So they have to borrow the money from the government to do farming. And sometimes you're lucky, you make enough profit, but sometimes you're not lucky, or bad season, right? There's not enough rain, they don't make profit, and when they don't make profit, they have money to pay back the loan. Then unfortunately they have to sell off their home, their farmland, or sometimes during the harvest, because they don't have a market to sell the rice, right? And then the government, the people who buy rice for the government to export, they don't come to buy. And when they come to buy the rice during the harvest season, what the Khmer Krom do? they cannot do anything. They just wait there, or they're willing to sell the price below the market, right? So that's, I mean, they lost the profit for that. So and now because the impact of the because the impact of the climate. Now talking about the land, right? When we losing the land during the impact of the land, some of the temple they built around near the river or near the ocean now because the impact, right? The land, we lost the land, we lost the temple around that area as well. So when we lost for us, the temple is the central of our community, right? We go there to learn the language. We go there to preserve our culture. And if you lost the temple, it's just like we lost the community center. We lost the language of our identity. So so the climate change did impact on our community in those areas that really put a burden on our community. So then the next one, when talking about now the Vietnam really promote about how the climate impact on the Mekong Delta. But if you're a climate activist, if you go to the conference or whatever Vietnam present about the climate impact in Vietnam, they never mention that there's a Khmer Krom live Mekong Delta. They never mention that the money they receive, they share with the Khmer Krom community. So during the conference of the climate change that I watched, Vietnam presented, right? And this, we know that there's $1 billion pouring to Vietnam now to have a project that to combat the climate impact, but those profit doesn't go to our community. And we verify that. We know for sure that our people did not have a voice, did not have a seat on the table when they're talking about how to combat the climate impact. So if for example, when they build the windmill, right, to reduce looks like for the project to combat the impact of climate change, those windmill build, but if they build on the farmland of our people, we don't get the compensation for that, right? Our people complaining about that, but yeah, we have no voice. We cannot, where do we turn to fight those complaints, right? When you don't have a voice on the table. Because of, but for our people, right? Even though we know that we have no voice, but we were resilient. We always try to educate our community, to try to teach our people, our community in a way that try to protect the village the way we used to do. And our community leader really vocal on that. Unfortunately, if you're more vocal on this area, you may get framed by you go against the policy of the government. And unfortunately, that really impacting our community, and our community. That's the way they used to, when they try to arrest or threaten our people, is the way they silence you to speak up for the truth against the government trying to use the impressing policy on our community. So now how do we, for us, right, what should we do to turn the climate aid into the climate justice, right? So as indigenous people of the Mekong Delta, what we want is just if Vietnam recognize us as indigenous people, and because then we have and respect us have a right as indigenous people, then we have a way to share our experience, to share the way how we our ancestors used to live in the land for 1,000 years. Then we can build those experience, try to combat the climate change in our traditional way, right? Like for example, right, because they force us to farm the 3 seasons at a time. They use fertilizers. Those things make the water polluted, right? And even though we say we produce a lot of rice, but my people now we don't have enough rice to eat in some area, right? So that is not sustained, and that is not the way the government of Vietnam should do, right? So secondly, right, if we have the government respecting us as these people, then we have a free and prior informed consent. That means whatever we have a project in our community, we will have a voice to say that should do or should not do. Unfortunately, those things are not on the table. Those things our people have no voice on it, right? So with the current situation that our people facing, what I urge for the world community that you have to share this kind of story. That's why it's really important to have a talk like this. So we come together. So I heard about the previous speaker to talk about different region, different community facing the issue. And now you heard about the Mekong Delta, right? The people who has they live there for 1,000 years, but not many people know about us. And without a conference like this, the story will not be heard. So I really thank you to the Climate Emergency Mobile Task Force to organize this kind of event for us to share the story, and hopefully we can come together one day to fight for the justice that the people who have no voice, right? And then I want to stop here, and next one I would say that the climate justice is injustice, right? And if we don't speak up for them, the world will not know about it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great again, and thank you for being here twice. That was amazing. Does anybody have any questions for Moni? Let me see if there's any hands raised. I see a lot of people clapping. I don't see any hands raised. So maybe we'll just transition to our next speaker, and because we have to get everyone ready to do the captions. But thank you. Have a wonderful stay in the DC area, and safe travels home. Thank you so much for your presentation. And hopefully we'll collaborate again in the future. Have a blessed day. Yay. All right. So Jack, you're on task now for the captions. Are you there?
Yes. Okay. 𝐂𝐴DINHA, welcome. Let me just say, I am so excited to meet 𝐂𝐴DINHA. If you were there Wednesday night, we had a little video about the movie that featured 𝐂𝐴DINHA, which is called The Territory, which is about the part of Brazil she lives in and works with the indigenous people there. And I was very pleased to be able to meet her because I have a friend named Ulf Rasmussen, who's a Swedish person who volunteers and has worked for many years in the Amazon. And he said, well, I said, do you know somebody we could include in our indigenous leaders for climate? And he said, yeah, get in touch with 𝐂𝐴DINHA. And so I did, and she responded, and we're just so excited to have you here. So I think we can go ahead and let you go ahead and talk. Spotlight for everyone here. There you go.
Thank you for being here.
Ok, posso falar já? Oi? Oi, pessoal, estão me ouvindo? Então, eu sou Neidinha Suruí, sou uma mulher de 1,60 m, tenho cabelos encaracolados longos até abaixo das costas, visto uma camisa de cor verde, atrás de mim tenho 2 quadros de 2 filmes, do filme O Território, que eu fiz parte, que conta a minha história, e do filme Minha Terra Estrangeira, que conta a história da minha filha e do pai dela. E um troféu que eu ganhei, o M que eu ganhei, e o outro troféu que eu ganhei da Rede Globo, que foi por ser uma pessoa que inspira. E tem uma plantinha, estou numa sala branca, só para que vocês saibam. Bom, feita a minha audiodescrição, eu sou de uma organização chamada Canidé, associação de defesa etnoambiental que atua com a defesa dos direitos humanos e da natureza. Eu tenho 67 anos, para que vocês saibam, sou mãe de 5 filhos e avó de 5. Então, eu sou uma pessoa que já viveu muito, né? E eu cresci na floresta até os meus 12 anos e depois vim para a cidade. Eu estou no estado de Rondônia, que é um estado que fica na Amazônia brasileira, no Brasil, e faz divisa com a Bolívia, para que vocês possam se localizar, porque eu não vou apresentar nenhum slide. O Brasil, nós temos mais de 391 povos, 391. E desses 391 povos, nós temos ainda 114 povos em estado de isolamento voluntário, que não quiseram se envolver com a sociedade envolvente. Temos, os povos indígenas têm 295 línguas, né, levantado, 295 idiomas, e, infelizmente, o Brasil, em 1758, quando Portugal dominava o país, antes da nossa independência, os portugueses, Marquês de Pombal, proibiu que se falasse a língua indígena. E o fato da proibição, tornando o português uma língua oficial e proibindo os indígenas de falar seu próprio idioma, fez com que se perdesse muito idioma, muita língua. Muitos povos, né, além de não poder falar a língua, não podiam se dizer como indígena, como povos nativos. Era proibido de se mostrar como povo nativo. Isso fez além de haver um massacre físico, né, o povo brasileiro, né, o povo indígena do Brasil, sofreu o etnocídio. Então, muitos povos não falam sua própria língua. E muitos povos que se achavam, né, que tinham sido extintos, porque o governo proibia que esses povos se autodeterminassem, né, como povo indígena, hoje esses povos estão retomando a sua luta, que é uma retomada, se autodeterminando como povos indígenas e questionando o governo por políticas públicas. Eu sou uma ativista da luta por direitos. Sou formada em História, tenho mestrado e doutorado em Geografia. Toda a minha trajetória, minha história, desde que saí da floresta para a cidade, para poder estudar e para poder defender os nossos direitos, os direitos dos povos indígenas, o direito do povo seringueiro, que meu pai era seringueiro, os direitos dos extrativistas, os direitos da maioria minorizada no país, fez com que toda a minha trajetória de vida eu venha sofrendo ameaças de morte. Então, eu já fui, já atiraram em mim, eu já fui sequestrada junto com minhas filhas. E hoje a gente vive com um acompanhamento para a nossa proteção. Então, nós temos um protocolo, né, de segurança para garantir que a gente não seja mortos. Eu já tive que, por um tempo, sair daqui da terra para que as pessoas, para poder sobreviver. Então, é muito importante, eu ouvindo todos os outros palestrantes, ver que a nossa história é uma história muito parecida com a história dos outros povos em todo o planeta. E ouvir os demais palestrantes, isso me deu força e a certeza que estamos no caminho certo. Na minha região, né, no Brasil, o Brasil a gente demarca territórios indígenas. Os territórios, eles são demarcados pelo Estado brasileiro. Porém, atualmente, o que nós, desde 2020 até agora, o que nós estamos sofrendo é um retrocesso em leis que nós conseguimos aprovar, como a Constituição Federal, que garantia os direitos dos povos indígenas a ter seu território, a ter saúde, ter educação. Nós hoje estamos vendo todo um retrocesso nessa lei que nos protegia. Hoje nós temos um Congresso Nacional que ele é anti-indígena, que ele persegue os povos tradicionais, os povos nativos, porque ele propõe leis para tomar os territórios dos povos indígenas, dos povos nativos. Nós sofremos ainda, no Congresso Nacional, um retrocesso enorme também nas questões ambientais. Quando a gente fala de clima no Brasil, nós estamos falando de todo um retrocesso que estamos sofrendo no Congresso Nacional, que está flexibilizando as leis ambientais. Para que vocês tenham uma ideia da gravidade que é isso, nós temos, o Congresso Nacional está para votação nessa semana, o chamado marco temporal. O que é o marco temporal? É uma lei proposta pelo Congresso Nacional para reduzir território indígena e não demarcar mais nenhum território. Essa lei, que já tinha sido aprovado antes, a Suprema Corte Brasileira, o Supremo Tribunal Federal, tinha declarado como inconstitucional. Essa lei voltou de novo no Congresso Nacional com uma outra roupagem, mas é a mesma lei, né? O mesmo marco temporal, e agora está para votação para tomar os territórios. Para que tenham uma ideia, a terra indígena 𝐂𝐤𝐷𝐻𝐷, que é de onde eu venho, onde eu me criei, de onde eu saí quando eu tinha 12 anos, essa terra, as pessoas que grilaram uma parte da terra, grilar é invadir parte da terra e tomar parte dessa terra. Que nós estamos tentando que eles saiam do território. O que está acontecendo hoje é que os políticos locais, os políticos federais estão pressionando o Supremo Tribunal Federal, estão pressionando o Congresso e todos os órgãos para que a terra que é do povo 𝐂𝐤𝐷𝐻𝐷, do povo Jupaú, essa terra seja dada para os brancos que invadiram o território. E esses invasores do território, eles têm ameaçado as nossas vidas, né? A gente não tem mais sossego. Em 2022, eles mataram uma liderança. Nós lutamos, né? E essa liderança ela foi morta porque ela defendia o território. Ele era um guardião da floresta, ele era um guardião da terra. E ele foi assassinado. E nós só conseguimos que o executor do crime fosse preso e condenado a 18 anos, porque nós conseguimos advogados parceiros nossos que pagaram os advogados, deram recurso para pagar o advogado, para a gente poder fazer a defesa do nosso território e a defesa da família e a defesa dele para mostrar que ele tinha sido assassinado por ser um guardião. Mesmo assim, sendo condenado o assassino, nós não conseguimos que o mandante do assassinato fosse preso. A gente não conseguiu. Para que vocês que estão me ouvindo possam conhecer um pouco disso que estou falando, o filme O Território, ele está na Disney Plus, na plataforma da NetGeo. Então, vocês acessam O Território que vocês vão poder assistir o filme. E ver como é a nossa luta em defesa da terra e do povo. Pensando nessa questão do clima, né, como o tempo está avançando, então eu vou entrar nessa questão climática. Nós temos sofrido problemas com a comida, com a alimentação, com a segurança alimentar, mas temos sofrido também com a questão da água, do acesso à água. Embora o território seja todo cercado de grandes rios, o governo fez duas grandes hidrelétricas para gerar energia para o país, e essas hidrelétricas trouxeram impacto sobre a questão dos peixes, né, da alimentação, trouxe para a região grandes invasores, né, que pessoas que passaram a invadir as regiões, tudo em volta, mas também os territórios. E quando veio em 2014, quando teve uma grande enchente, parte dos territórios sofreu alagação com as enchentes, o que destruiu o roçado, destruiu os plantios. Então, em 2014, a gente teve que começar, depois que a enchente baixou, teve que recomeçar todo o plantio novamente para poder ter alimentação. Nesse período, foi preciso levar cestas básicas de alimento para as aldeias, né, porque todo o alimento tinha sido destruído. E a gente teve que recomeçar o plantio novamente. Agora, em 2024, o clima ele ficou muito seco. A gente sofreu uma das piores secas que podia ter. E os roçados que antes tinham sido destruídos com a enchente, agora foram destruídos pelo fogo e pela falta de água. A situação foi tão grave, que teve aldeias que a gente teve que levar a água de helicóptero, não, de avião. A gente conseguiu doações, que as pessoas doassem água Mas aí a gente teve que ir atrás de como levar água. Se o rio tinha secado, se não tinha como levar pelo rio. E isso foi um processo de ter que se humilhar para vários órgãos, humilhação mesmo, para que eles entendessem que os povos nativos, que os povos indígenas, eles estavam sem água, que eles estavam sem alimento, que a gente precisava fazer o alimento e a água chegar até lá. Porque o que não tinha morrido por causa da seca, morreu pelo fogo, morreu pelas queimadas, porque começaram a fazer queimadas. E depois de muito insistir e muito se humilhar, conseguimos que a Defesa Civil desse um helicóptero, né, cedesse o helicóptero para levar água, sementes e alimentos. E de lá para cá, a gente vem tentando achar saídas para fazer adaptação e mitigação para os problemas climáticos que estamos sofrendo. E uma das soluções que a gente está levando, né, para as aldeias são a de restaurar as áreas que foram todas destruídas, queimadas, devastadas. Então, fazer todo um trabalho de restauração dessas áreas degradadas, e estamos fazendo isso com sistemas agroflorestais, né, direto para os indígenas, onde esses sistemas agroflorestais, eles ali alimentos, né, plantas que são alimentos, mas também plantas que são nativas da região, que para fortalecer a floresta, para que os animais possam voltar para a floresta, possam ter também a sua casa de volta, porque com a seca os animais também perderam o seu lar. Então, os sistemas agroflorestais que estamos implantando têm esse viés de garantir segurança alimentar para a comunidade, mas também garantir alimento para os animais da floresta, além de gerar renda para a comunidade. Porque a comunidade precisa de dinheiro para o hospital, precisa para roupa, para calçado, para estudar, e a gente também está, junto com outros parceiros, levando Starlink para dentro das aldeias, para que eles possam se comunicar. Porque tem aldeias que, quando a pessoa sofre qualquer doença, fica doente, e se for uma emergência, é muito difícil saber. Porque tem aldeia que tu leva 3 dias de barco para chegar, 4 dias de barco, dependendo de como está o rio. Então, eles tendo a comunicação, a gente vê a comunicação como uma forma tanto de melhorar a saúde, o atendimento à saúde, mas também para que eles possam estudar. Porque o Estado tem o governo do Estado tem um sistema de ensino à distância. Mas eles não podiam acessar porque eles não tinham internet. E agora, com internet, eles vão ter a possibilidade de acessar a educação à distância. Ainda outro sistema uma outra solução que a gente viu para fortalecer a cultura, porque a cultura tem sido muito impactada por conta não só dessa coisa do contato, mas também a gente sofre a entrada muito forte de religiões evangélicas dentro dos territórios que vem tirando a cultura dos indígenas, modificando, destruindo a cultura dentro dos territórios. Então, uma outra forma que a gente viu como solução, tanto para a questão do clima, para ajudar a gente a manter a floresta em pé, mas também para fortalecer a identidade e fortalecer a cultura, foi desenvolver o turismo no território. Então, a gente tem dentro do território, não em todo, mas em alguns territórios, nós temos o etnoturismo. Esse turismo hoje tem servido tanto para proteger a cultura, porque o fato de ter que apresentar a cultura, falar sobre a cultura, mostrar a cultura, isso fortalece os laços culturais. E faz também com que os jovens aprendam sobre a sua cultura quando os mais velhos sentam para falar de toda a cultura com os visitantes. Isso tem servido para que os mais novos também aprendam. E quando eles veem também, quando os indígenas, nossos parentes, vê que os visitantes gostam de aprender sobre a nossa cultura, isso também deixa eles muito orgulhosos de ver o tanto que é importante a sua própria cultura. O fato de estar fazendo o etnoturismo tem ajudado a fazer a proteção também da terra. Por quê? Porque as pessoas que vão também começam a falar da importância do território, da importância de poder andar na floresta, ver os animais na floresta, de poder conversar e aprender sobre a cultura. Uma outra coisa que a gente tem feito ainda como solução para combater as emergências climáticas é trabalhar com reflorestamento. Nós temos em todos o território fazendo o reflorestamento. Lá nos Paité-Suruí, na 7 de setembro, que é o território que eu morei parte da minha vida, porque sou casada com um Paité-Suruí, com o grande chefe do povo Paité-Suruí, lá a gente já plantou mais de 1.000 árvores, né? 1.000 árvores nativas, nativa mesmo, porque nós entendemos que durante muito tempo foi os madeireiros destruir o território, derrubando a floresta, roubando as árvores, né? E replantar foi o que nos fez, né, forte na defesa do território. Isso é muito importante para a gente, ver a floresta, os animais que tinham fugido agora voltaram, estão de volta à floresta. E isso é muito importante para a gente, tanto porque nós somos, no Brasil e na Amazônia, nós somos um país mega diverso, e no território, essa diversidade a gente é enorme. A gente tem espécie ameaçada de extinção, a gente tem espécies endêmicas, a gente tem espécies que são muito, muito importantes para a nossa segurança alimentar. Então, reflorestar, restaurar, né, deu segurança para a gente e para os animais também. Além disso, nós estamos desenvolvendo ainda como solução, e dentro dos sistemas agroflorestais, nós plantamos café, hoje somos muito conhecidos pelo café que produzimos, plantamos cacau, está sendo desenvolvida uma fábrica de cacau, que a gente vai usar nosso próprio cacau para vender o chocolate, um chocolate direto aqui do território, direto da Amazônia. Nós temos uma fábrica de castanha do Brasil, né, que é conhecida como castanha do Pará. Então, nós temos essa fábrica, que está lá também desenvolvendo para a gente coloca no mercado a castanha e agora a ideia é colocar a castanha já preparada, porque antes a gente só vendia in natura, né? Do jeito que a gente coletava na floresta. Agora não, agora a gente já tem a fábrica e vai já vender já mais industrializada. Então, a gente tem buscado várias formas de combater as emergências climáticas. Além de fazer essas ações práticas no território, outra ação que a gente faz que é prática bem do nosso território é o biomonitoramento da fauna. A gente faz o biomonitoramento para ver como os animais estão sendo impactados e aí que providência tomar para salvá-los, né, para manter a vida desses animais, para manter a floresta viva. E tudo isso que a gente faz, a gente tem uma série de parceiros. Além da associação indígena, da organização indígena, a gente tem vários parceiros que têm nos ajudado e nós consideramos isso importante, porque quanto mais gente estiver junto a nós em defesa do território, em defesa dos direitos humanos, em defesa da floresta, a gente sabe que isso vai nos fortalecer e isso vai nos ajudar a enfrentar os políticos e os grileiros de terra, os que querem grilar os territórios, os que querem tomar o território indígena. Eu não sei se já deu tempo. Já deu tempo, Jack? Não? Bom, eu acho que eu ainda tenho, pelo que eu estou vendo, 5 minutos, né?
Maybe we
Yes.
can have a few minutes for questions.
Ok? Acho que tenho 5 minutos ainda. Então, vou partindo para o encerramento. Então, nós sofremos toda a pressão do agronegócio, da soja, né, da carne, da mineração. A pressão da mineração é muito grande, a pressão do soja é muito grande em cima do território, né? Mas tudo isso tem feito com que a gente trabalhe no sentido de fortalecer a nossa juventude, a juventude indígena, que ela é muito ativa, e junto com os mais velhos, os anciões e anciãs, né, a gente tem lutado para manter os direitos, não está fácil manter os direitos indígenas no Brasil, não está fácil por conta do Congresso Nacional, mas nós temos nos juntado à Associação de Mulheres Indígenas, à Associação da Juventude Indígena, com os jovens da periferia da cidade, temos atuado juntos para a defesa dos direitos e para a luta e combate às emergências climáticas. Não está sendo fácil, as ameaças são grandes, mas uma certeza a gente tem, uma certeza muito grande, de que juntos, nós, povos nativos do Brasil, ativistas de meio ambiente do Brasil, homens, mulheres, jovens, criança, né, do Brasil, junto com toda essa gama de ativistas do mundo inteiro, de indígenas, de povos nativos do mundo inteiro, se a gente se une, se a gente está junto, a gente se fortalece e a gente vence todos aqueles que querem destruir o nosso planeta. Nós seremos fortes se nos juntarmos. Juntos seremos muito mais fortes. E, com certeza, manteremos as nossas florestas no mundo inteiro, né? São diversos tipos de floresta em cada parte do mundo, mas junto a gente consegue manter o povo, manter a cultura e manter o planeta vivo. Eu quero agradecer o convite para participar Recomendo que assistam o filme O Território para saber um pouco mais da gente. E o filme Minha Terra Estrangeira, que também é um outro filme, ainda não está no stream ainda, mas é um filme que logo, logo vai estar. E eu só quero muito agradecer, e até Xité, que falou, abençoe todos vocês. Gratidão. Ok? Thank
Wow,
you.
that was amazing. Thank you. Gracias, gracias. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's amazing how uh, all the different presentations today have are all intertwined because the colonizers in our lands. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you. My son just got back from Brazil not that long ago. He wants to go back again, and he said it's a beautiful country, and I hope one day I'm able to get there too. So thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experiences, your wisdom. This was so this is the first time we've had trans captions, and I hope everyone was able to follow along. It was really, really, really great. Thank you so much. Jack, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just want to second what Nadine has said. The movie, The Territory, is really worth watching. It had a lot of really good points in it. One of the things, well, there's lots of things that stand out, but one of them that struck me is that the settlers claim, well, there's only like 200 people in this vast territory, but the people were saying, but we're preserving this for the whole planet. You know, when they come in and they destroy the forest, it's making the planet unlivable. And so I think it's very powerful, and I do encourage people. And thank you so much, Nadine. I really enjoyed hearing what you said about uniting between the indigenous people and the environmental activists and everybody. That's what it's going to take, and that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So you just put it so well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was great. I want to thank all the speakers for today. Let's get back to my little script here. I want to thank everyone for being here, for Nadinha, for being here from Brazil. I want to thank Karina and Jack for always being a part of this. Karina, Gould, Shreya, Lua, Mauricio, Moni, and our last speaker, Nindinha. And thank you all for being here. And then I just wanted to announce that in September, we're going to have climate and fossil fuels on September 18th. So you can register for that. If you're able, you can donate. I'll drop that in the chat. So, wow, am I able to? I don't know. Sometimes I have issues with this. I don't know. Oh, you have to select everyone. Okay, maybe that's it. I don't know. But anyway, you can go to Eventbrite and search for climate and fossil fuels on September 18th. And Jack dropped an evaluation form in the chat, which you can also fill out. This is the kickoff of our series. So like I said, we're gonna have climate and fossil fuels in September. November, we're gonna have climate and war. In January, we're gonna have climate and activism. And then in March, we're gonna have climate and you. And in between those times, we're going to have a bio blitz, hopefully, in September or so. So stay tuned for that. And also, you know, we have the Climate Emergency Mobilization Task Force general meetings on the third Wednesday of every other month. We just had it this past Wednesday. So the next time will be in September. So stay tuned for that. We often kick off the summit at those meetings. So thank you all for being here. I know you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. All our speakers were amazing, and there's so much work to do. And again, I want to thank my family for being here, and especially my son for getting me involved in the climate emergency. And when I was on council, he talked about one world, one, and that's exactly what we need. All of the world to come together, indigenous and otherwise, all the people, black, white, brown, all the cultures to come together to face the climate emergency and find solutions. So thank you for being here. And we hope to see you in September, and stay tuned for other events that we might have. And y'all have a blessed day. Stay safe. Love yourself so you can love others. And, you know, we're in some tumultuous times, so we have to take care of ourselves to get through this. But we can all get through it together. So let's unite and be in solidarity. Y'all have a blessed day. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. And stay tuned for CEMTF's next event in September. And thank you. I have to give a shout out to Jeannie because she's often here on our events, and I appreciate that. And thank you, Willie, and my family as well, and everybody else that's here today, and all the speakers. So have a blessed day, everyone. Bye-bye.